There are times workplaces can be toxic. Just last week, Rolling Stone magazine published a story with a number of current and former employees at The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon talking about their toxic experiences. He's apologized. NBC says it has investigated issues and it encourages employees to report their concerns. LaSalle Network founder and CEO Tom Gimbel joins us now to talk about what you can do if you are at a toxic workplace and ways you can identify them. Tom, the Ellen Show had that issue as well. I think the Steve Harvey Show at one time.
Well, I think we're talking now about celebrity-driven companies
Right.
that are supporting one star that is the meal ticket for everybody. And when you get into Hollywood and you're talking about egomaniac, ego-driven people, and I'm not saying these three people you mentioned were or were not, but it tends to be something of serving one master. Of it can be a little bit of a dictatorship, and in doing that, you sometimes can get a little bit of a not employee-friendly work environment.
Okay, so a lot of us aren't working for celebrities, so we're in different places. How can we identify whether it's toxic or not?
Well, I think that's really the problem in society right now, Micah, that we're dealing with, is that toxic to one person isn't necessarily toxic to another. And we've gotten into this world of I'm not saying there aren't legitimate issues. There absolutely are. But we've also gotten into a world of a lot of oversensitive people too. And because somebody says something that's not politically correct, or somebody may be having a bad day, that doesn't make the workplace toxic any more than if you're having a bad day and you're not nice to the person at the Starbucks, right? That doesn't make you a bad customer. It means that in that moment, it's not great. If day after day, week after week, month after month, the workplace is draining you from a standpoint of people being rude, think about what the word toxic means, poison.
Right.
If you are going in every single day and you're sick as a result of the people you're around or how somebody's around, that's not great. If you're being harassed or bullied, it becomes to beg the question of why are you staying?
And then there's a high turnover too, a lot when you're in a toxic
but there's also
place.
there's different levels of high turnover, right? You could have a high turnover because it's a sales organization, and a lot of people think they want to get into sales because it makes a lot of money, but they turn over because they're not any good at it or they don't like cold calling. That doesn't make it a toxic environment. It means that they hire a lot of people knowing a lot of people can't do the job. So what one person calls toxic, another person calls survival of the fittest. So I think there is a different level of analysis there.
What does it mean to promote unhealthy boundaries?
Well, I think now we're getting into the world of, are people working after hours? Are they working on the weekends? Or are people is there an expectation that you need to be friends with your boss, or your boss is going to be friends with you? And I think that comes down to social intelligence, to emotional intelligence, to EQ. And you and I have talked about that before, Micah, is that I'm not sure that necessarily is the workplace as much as there's a managerial problem. And if you have a company that has 250 people, 500 people, 1,000 people, and one manager is a bad manager, does that make the company toxic? Or does that make one manager not the best person? And I think there's having judgment as the employee of having perspective of what's good for you versus good for the entirety of the organization.
And a toxic workplace apparently doesn't support professional growth.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, that's to me a pretty black and white issue. What's the definition of professional growth? If you're not getting professional growth, but those around you are getting promoted and those around you are happy, then maybe you have to look in the mirror. But if nobody gets promoted and there isn't internal development and there isn't any external training or internal training, then yeah, that's a company that doesn't view their employees as a priority. Does that mean toxic? Not necessarily. There's a lot of people that don't want to grow, don't want to get promoted. They want a 9 to 5 and they want to go home after. So again, you have to look and say, what are your top 3 priorities? What are they? And then say, does the company offer these for me? And if the answer is no, maybe you've just taken a job at the wrong place.
So, but Tom, it sounds like you're saying toxicity is in the eye of the beholder.
Well, I am saying that if you see everybody getting sick, then it's toxic. There's a poison coming out of the place.
Okay.
If you aren't seeing that, then maybe it's you. And I think too often we're quick to say, because I don't like the way people are being treated, then nobody should like the way people are being treated. And I just think that's a emblematic of where society is today. I think there are a lot of toxic cultures out there, but I also think there's a lot of people that enjoy that, what that may be, whether it's a sales driven environment, whether it's survival of the fittest, whether it's working your tail off and working 90 hours a week to make as much money as you can. If I didn't like that environment and I worked there, I'd think it was toxic. But
Okay.
if I want to make as much money as I can and work 90 hours a week, I think that's healthy. So,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Two sides to every coin, Micah. You know that.
Oh, yes, I do. Thank you very much, Tom Gimbel,
Oh,
CEO of
goodness,
LaSalle
Mike.
Network
Come
founder.
on. Smile for me, please. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.